Alright, Association of American Railroads Manual Standards Recommended Practice. Wheels and axles, axle carbon steel heated treated, specification M101, adopted 1914, last revised 2016. Scope of the specification covered heated treated axles, all sizes of passenger car, freight cars, to the design shown in section G. The specification all covered heated with the treated locomotive axles. The carbon grades of carbon steel axles are as follows. Grade F, double normalized and tempered, all freight axles at 6.5 inch nominal diameter at the center shall be grade F. Grade G, quenched and tempered. Grade H, normalized, quenched and tempered. Grade F, G, and H. Axles are used in heavy duty surface locomotive cars and other equipment. 2. Qualification manufacturer. Qualification as a manufacturer of axles for the American Association of American Railroad interchange surface must be in accordance with the Appendix C of the specification. Qualification if effective until revoked first. The cause of the committee failure to maintain responsibility quality standards and manuals. Example of the cause: axle manufacturers must meet the requirements for the Association of American Railroads Manual Standard Recommended Practices. Section J, specification M103, specification quality insurance. Manufacturer process. The steel shall be made with the following process: open hearth electrical furnace, basic oxygen. Proposed changes to material manufacturing process must be submitted to the Association of American Railroads for consideration. Approval of the new material for the process may include meeting of the requirements stated in Appendix C. 3.2. Discard. Sufficient discards shall be made for each ingot to ensure that the freedom of the piping and undue segregation. 3.3. Reduction practice. Axle must be made directly from the ingot or from blooms. The total reduction of the ingot or standard cast blooms for forging rolling which shall be not less than 3 to 1 unless otherwise specified. No, the process of manufacturing standard cast blooms shall be designed to ensure freedom from the center porosity and undue segregation. Cooling and heating. After axle blooms are produced, they shall be slow cooled in closed container hoods and furnaces. Blooms shall be reheated with working in a manner that will prevent internal burst or overheating. After reduction, axles shall be slow cooled in closed conveyors, or in hoods. If axle grades F, G, and H are heat treated directly for the reduction, they shall be slow cooled following the final heat treatment. 4. Axle grades F, G, and H are treated directly for the reduction. 1 shall be cooled below the transformation temperature of approximately 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit before reheating operation. 2 must be not permitted to cool below 500 degrees Fahrenheit without slow cooling as defined in paragraph 4.3. Notice temperature of the axles approach with a minimum of 500 degrees Fahrenheit. A supplemental heat source must be necessary to ensure the effective slowing cycle. 4.5. When proper vacuum degas steel is used, the slow cooling requirements of the paragraph 4.1, 4.3, and item 2 of the paragraph 4.4 may be omitted, but axle blooms must be in the pile cool. 4.6. The slowing requirements of paragraph 4.1, 4.3, and item 2 of the paragraph 4.4 may be accomplished by piling covering the piled blooms, axles, insulating materials, lieu of the using the closed container hoods, furnaces, covered conveyors, covered piles must be capable of providing efficient, effective cool rating in accordance with the manufacturer procedure and specification. 5.0. Heat treatment. Axle with the heat treatment should be reheated gradually, uniformly suitable temperature to refine the grain structure. Normalizing. After being heated with a suitable temperature, the axle shall be withdrawn from the furnace and allowed to cool uniformly in air. A furnace charge that has been treated to determine normalizing charge cooling may be accelerated. Increased air circulation must be controlled to provide reasonable uniform cooling. Double normalizing. The procedure consisting of the two separate normalizing temperatures. Two separate normalizing treatments. The second treatment shall be performed with a low temperature of the first treatment. The furnace shall be charged with the treated, termed as a double normalizing charge. Cooling may be accelerated, increasing air circulation, which must be controlled to provide reasonable uniform cooling. No, a single normalizing treatment shall be performed when all requirements for the grade F can be met. Quenching. After being heated with a suitable temperature, the axle shall be quenched with a suitable medium under responsible uniform condition of a furnace charge with the treated is termed the quenching charge. 5.5. Tempering. Axle shall be reheated gradually to and held at a suitable temperature below the critical range and shall be allowed to cool under suitable conditions. That furnace charge shall be treated with the term the temperature tempering charge. 5.6. Heating treatment may be performed either batch type furnaces or continuous furnaces. 6. Straightening. Straightening shall be done with the machining, preferably with a temperature lower than 950 degrees Fahrenheit. If straightening performed with a temperature lower than 950 degrees Fahrenheit, it shall be followed in the rest leaving the applicable heat treatment. 7. Chemical composition. Effective January 1st, 2003, the seal conforming with requirements for chemical composition shown in Table 7.1. Carbon percentage, heated minimum 45 to 0.45, max 0.59. Magnesium percentage 0.70, 0.101 max, 0.60, 0.60 and 0.90 for grade H. Sulfur percentages grade F, maximum 500s, grade H, G and H 500s. Silicone percentage minimum 15.15, and for grade H, grade F, and grade H. Vandamine percentage 0.200s and 800s maximum, each in grade F. Alright, the ladle analysis. Analysis of each of the heat of the steel shall be made with the manufacturer to determine the percentage of the carbon, magnesium, phosphorus, sulfur, silicone, vanadium. The chemical composition determined shall be reported with the purchaser. The purchaser representative shall be conformed with the requirements of paragraph 7.0. Identification heating consecutive stranding casting. If more than one heat is consecutive to stranding with cast at one time, the ladle analysis shall be obtained with each of the heat. The ladle analysis, one heat does not meet the requirements of the specification of the bloom or the blooms of the compromise. The mix of the two consecutive heats shall be deemed to be outside the requirements of the specification unless additional chemical analysis prove compliance. If the both ladle analysis are in compliance with the specification, the heat number assigned with the cast production shall remain unchanged until all the seal in the bloom is from the following heat, alternating when all mixed in proportion of the two consecutive heats in the one bloom. The bloom may be given the heat number of the compromising large portion of the bloom either side of the mixed portion. 9.0. Check analysis. Analysis made of the purchaser of one axle representing each heat with the chemical composition determined shall conform with the requirements of paragraph 7.0. The subject tolerance, including table 9.1, the sample of the analysis shall be taken one end of the axle and full-size propagation of the point midway between the center and surface of the drilling is taken that should be obtained with a 5/8 inch drill diameter. Turnings may be taken with a tensile test specimen. Alright, permissible variation of the check analysis. Permissible variation over the maximum limit under the minimum limit. Magnesium 300, phosphorus 8,000, sulfur 8,000, silicone 200, vanadium 1,000. Alright, 10. Tension test. Grade F, G, and H axles shall conform with the requirements of Table 10. Table 10.1 tensile requirements for carbon steel heated treated axles. Grade F, double normalized, size not over 8 inches, tensile strength 88 psi of 88 psi minimum, yielded strength of 50,000 psi, elongation 2% of a minimum of 20%, reduction area and percentage 35, G quench temperature sizes 4 not over 4 and 4 not over 4 90,000 55,000 yield strength elongation 2 inches 28%, 39% reduction, quenched 4 to 7 over 4 and over 4 not over 7 85,500 a year, 85,000 tensile strength, yield strength PSI 50,000, 20% elongation and 2 inches, reduction area 39%. Tempered, it's graded G 7 and 10, over 7 but not over 10, 85,000 tensile strength, 50,000 yield strength, 19% elongation and 2 inches, 37% reduction area production. H normalized, quenched, and tempered, not over 7, 115,000, 75,000 strength. Elongation 16% and 2 inches, 35% reduction area in percentage. Alright, over 7 but not over 10, 105,000 for tensile strength, 65,000 yield strength, 18% elongation, 2% in reduction area, and 35%. The size classification shall determine the finished diameter of the journal, the diameter of the testing propagation less equal for the form diameters for the journal, the tensile property for all the grades of the table 10.1 shall be determined in the procedure described in ASTM A370 standard method of definition. Mechanical testing of steel product. The yield strength shall be determined with using the 2% and 0.2% offset technique. A class B2, the more accurate extensometer shall be used. Use of automated devices determining the offset of the yield strength without need for the plotting of the stress strain curve that are acceptable. Tests shall be made only after the final treatment of grade F and G and H axles. 11. Tension test specimens. Tension test specimens should be taken with a test prolongation or an axle in accordance with the provision in paragraph 12.0. Unless otherwise specified, the axle specimen shall be located in a midway between the center and surface of the axle. Full size large propagation shall be parallel to the axis of the axle. Tension testing specimen shall conform with the dimension of the figure C1. Tensile testing propagation shall have the minimum tensile strength yield point of the 5% greater than shown in 10.1 for grade example. Grade F tension test for axle prolongation shall have the 92,500 psi minimum tensile strength at 52,500 psi minimum yield point. Our tension test specimens for the axle shall be taken with the journal of the axle and the minimum radius halfway between the surface and the center of the gauge dimension parallel for the axis of the axle. For tension specimen, remove the propagation sample that must be taken with the minimum radius of the half between the surface and the center of the gauge dimension parallel to the axis of the axle. 12.0 Propagation of tests. Each classification of each of the heat of the each heating treating must be tested. Test samples shall be taken either by the propagation of the axle journal for the axles without propagation. Axle journal may be the test procurement. Test report shall be propagation sizing prior test of the use of the axle and test microscopic test for heat treated axles grade F, G, and H. A specimen representing each of the classification each heat and heat treating lighting shall be taken with a microscopic tension test specimen. The specimen of the microscopic test shall be cut from the large undistorted portion of the tension test specimen in such a way that it will give the transverse to the use of the axis of the axle. The face shall be polished practically free of the scratches and shall be etched and defined with the microstructure. The specimen shall be examined under the magnification of 100 diameters. The entire specimen shall show the uniform final grade structure shall have a grain size of 5 or finer, more measured according to the ASTM standard method E11 E112 last version. 14. Number of tests. Unless otherwise specified with the purchase or mechanical test for the grade and size shown in the table 10.1 shall be made with the heat treated axles covered in paragraph 14.2. On the test period per heat with the precise classification required, but each test must represent no more than 70 axles, including the test axle. The exact axle represented with the test shall be called a heat treatment lot. Each heat treatment lot shall be heated with the treated together within the batch type of the continuous furnace in the event with the mechanical portion of the test did not conform with requirements specified in all axles. Heat treatment the lot and retreated with the accordance with the paragraph 15.3 of the specification. 14.3. If the test specimen fails to be covered with the mechanical condition of the testing apparatus, it must be discarded and another specimen and taken. 15.0 Retest. The result of the mechanical test of any lot that do not conform with the requirements specified, but because of the flaw of the developed the test specimen during the test, retest shall be allowed defects and not caused by the rupture, cracks, and flakes in the steel. And the test specimen is now flawed. The results of the second test propagation or from an axle cannot be substituted for the failed test result. For the result of the mechanical test of any lot with the grade F and G and H axles does not conform to the requirements specified, the axles must be retreated but not more than 3 additional times. Retest shall be made in accordance with paragraph 10.0. 16.0 Ultrasonic testing radial and axle scope. The specification describing the axle radial and ultrasonic testing requirements of the new axles radial. The ultrasonic testing became effective July 1st, 2009. Time of the inspection is axle anytime during the production form, axle end facing and center drilling. The radial anytime during the production of the final initial running turn forward surface cannot be effectively radial unit ultrasonic tested. 16.3 Testing equipment type. The pulse electrotype brand pass amplifier quantity. One or more multiple transducer arrays must be capable of monitoring individual transducers. Couplant. The couplant must be used between the face of the transducer and test surface. The couplant is to be used for test and calibration. Machine calibration, at least annually each time the system receives maintenance for the effective system performance. 16.3.1 Axle transducers frequency 1.0 to 2.20 2.25 megahertz. Size and shape 0.75 to 1 inch diameter and 1 inch squared. 16.3.2 radial transducer frequency range 1.0 to 5.0 megahertz. Size and shape 5.5 inch to 1 inch diameter or 1 inch squared. All personnel performing ultrasonic inspection operations must be qualified as non-destructive testing at ultrasonic level. The minimum qualification shall be in accordance with the Association Non-Destructive Testing. The recommended practice is SNTTC 1A last edition. All personnel setting ultrasonic inspection testing systems must be qualified in the non-destructive testing, ultrasonic testing level 2 minimum qualification shall be in accordance with the American Society of Non-Destructive Testing recommended practices SNTTC 1A last edition. Each manufacturer must employ services as an individual qualified by the non-destructive test, ultrasonic test level 3 minimum qualification shall be in accordance with the American Society of Non-Destructive Testing recommended practices SNTTC 1A latest edition. 16.5 records. Each facility must maintain the following records of duration indicated with the records must be accessible within 4 hours upon request for the Association of American Railroad representative. The procedural specification for each validated ultrasonic test process current revision and posted controlled copy of the ultrasonic test specification, ultrasonic test equipment areas, and current revisions. All individual axle test results in printable form. Individual heat axle serial number date inspection 10 years of the date of the manufacturer. 16.5.1 Personal certification for the ultrasonic testing must be in accordance with the American Society of Non-Destructive Testing recommended with the practices SNTTC 1A with the latest edition. Each certification must be ensured with the responsible official of the facility verifying the non-destructive testing ultrasonic test level 3 10 years. Reference block semi-annual validation record including the inspector's name, ID, revalidation date, measured surface finish, and reference block 10 years. Validation system must be performed using the same couplant during the axle testing. All current surfaces must be smooth with the surface roughness better than 125 micro inches and from axle test or 500 micro inch from the radial testing. Also should be free of dirt and grit. 16.6.1 Axle penetration. 16.6.1 Calibration system testing. Ultrasonic inspections must be validated initially upon installation at least once every year for the initial and test installation. 16.16.1.1.1 Calibration 1/8 of an inch flat bottom with a 15-inch depth set up at the 20% full screen height with using 16-inch long reference block manufactured from grade F axle forging. 16.6.1.1 2. Reference standards must be inspected with the certified semi-annual surface furnish for the inspector's face with 125 micro inches or better. 16.6.1.2 Periodic tests. Periodic tests shall be made during the production testing against the calibration block as described in paragraph 16.6.1.1.1. Adjusting shall be made to instrument controls to ensure the compliance with the specification. 16.6.1.2.2 Periodic must be made at least once every 4 years of use. 16.6.1.3 16.6.1.3.1 Unscheduled system should be during the production testing against the calibration block as described in paragraph 16.6.1.1.1. Adjustments shall be made in the instrument controls to ensure compliance with the specification. Tests must be made every time there is a change to system operators. Tests must be made every time there is a transducer cables and any other system hardware accessories. 16.6.1.3.1.3 Tests must be made every time the equipment malfunctions upon powering. 16.6.2 Radial Calibration system. The ultrasonic inspection system must be validated initial installation at least once every year for the initial installation. Calibration system must be set up with a large diameter typical of the wheel seat with the testing journal wheel seat and body to exhibit 100% of the full screen height response for the back wall reflection. Tests must be made every time there is equipment malfunction upon the powering on. When changing the equipment power source transducer's operator coaxial cable occurs, the system setup must be re-verified. 16.7 Inspection. General inspection. Surface must be free of all dirt, grit, and prior to starting the test, the same coupling must be used in the calibration examination during the axle penetration testing. Radial back wall reflection, in addition with the 60 decibel, should be at a reference sensitive level of the scanning purpose. If the scan with a higher sensitivity, the loss of the back wall reflection evaluation performed with removing additional 6 decibels. Alright, 16.7.2 Axle penetration test. The variation of the cross-section axle might produce a serious indication these operate. Expected indication must be recognized or not cause of the rejection. The axle ends must be prepared with the surface finish of 125 micro-inches or better. If any of the back wall reflection does not exceed 40% of the screen height, the axle is ejected at the discretion of the manufacturers. That may be retarded. Refer to paragraph 15.3. 16.7.3 Radial. The variation cross-section axle may produce the spurs. Indication of these expected indications must be recognized or not cause of the rejection. Scan of the entire length of the axle radial through the diameter of which the method provides equivalent better coverage to radial sweeps must be performed from along the axle along length of offset of 90 degrees minimum. Axle surface must be returned with the surface of the finish of 500 micro-inches or better. The axle shall be rejected for any location showing the loss of the back wall reflection of 80% or greater unless the loss can be attributed to geometry. Marking. All axles that are tested radial must be had with the character R immediately following the axle grade marking. All axles failed with the radial test must be immediately identified and segregated for scrapping. 17 Dimensions and tolerances. 17.1 For other standard freight passenger car with the reference with the specification standard tolerance allowing the apply the non-specified axle drawings provided with the pair purchaser. 7.2 Axle center shall conform with the figure C5. For axles over order of finish ending facing of the purchaser, the overall length of the shall range from 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch over the specified minimum length. Rough machine journals wheel seating shall be 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch over the finished diameter. Longitudinally 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch. Metal should be allowed to each change of the cross section for the finishing machine. The smooth machine body shall be specified size no more than 1/8 of an inch over in diameter, shall have no more than 1/8 of an inch allowance longitudinal in each of the change of the cross section unless specified with otherwise in figure C3. 18.0 Weight. The approximate weight of the passenger freight axles covered with the specification are shown in recommended practices RP 622. 19. Workmanship and finish. Axles shall be machined smooth. The machine furnished between the wheel seats. The wheel seats and journals shall be roughly machined. The rough machining shall be free. Objectionable ridges, chartered marks, journals should dust guards, wheel seats, axles supplied, finished, and form will comply with the applicable provisions of the American Association of American Manual Standard Recommendation Practices, Section G, Part 2, Wheel and Axle Manual. Alright, when the axle shall be free of the injuries, defects, the machining shall be done with the workman like a manner. The interpretation injury defects, the axle shall comply with the Appendix A, interpretation of defects, consideration, injurious axles. 20.0 Marking. Axles shall be legibly cold stamped with the characters not less than 1/4 inch high in accordance with the American Association standards of standard marking requirements for shown figure C2. The effective April 1st, 2012 barcode labels shall be affixed to axles requiring them to accordance with the manual standard recommendation practice section 5, section F standard S920 in that paragraph 1.4 appendix A. 21 Inspection. The inspector representing the purchaser shall have the free entry at all times while the working on the contract purchase of the being performed. All parts of the manufacturer works that are concerned with the manufacturer material order of the manufacturer for the inspector free of the charge responsible facilities necessary assistance to satisfy inspector for the maintenance material that being furnished in accordance with the specification. Testing inspections acceptance shall be made with the place of the manufacturer. The purchase make the test with the cover of the acceptance rejection material and purchase own laboratory elsewhere. Such tests must be made an expense for the purchaser. Inspector shall examine each of the axle and easing of the workmanship defects and the conformity with the dimension given in the order of the drawing. If the inspection defects are forwarded found that the manufacturer can be remedied, manufacturers may correct such defects. 22.0 Rejection. Any axle that fails to meet the requirements for these specification will be rejected. Axles show injurious defects subjecting with original inspection acceptance. The manufacturer works elsewhere rejected, but the manufacturer will be notified. 23.0 Rehearing. Sample the axles tested in accordance with the specification represented. Rejected material shall be held for 14 days of the day of the test report. In case of dissatisfaction with the result of the test, the manufacturer may request a hearing within the time. 24. Certification. Upon purchase of the contract order with the manufacturer, certification that the material is manufactured tested in accordance with the specification together with report test reports shall be furnished at the time of the shipment. 25O. Supplemental requirements. The following supplemental requirements shall apply with the specified with the purchase. Details should agree with the manufacturer for the purchasers. 25.1. Macroscopic test. The promulgation of the largest axle each unit with solved with normal axis over the axle shall be shown. But the split longitudinal, the transverse longitudinal face shall be etched for the microscopic inspection. References shall be made to the specific of American Sighting Testing Materials Method E381 standard method of macro etch testing seal bars, billets, and blooms and forgings. The purchase may specify axle wheels seated diameters 1/8 of an inch larger than those shown under the dimension I in Figure C3. Specification includes Appendixes A, B, C, Figure C1 through C5, and specifications M101. Alright, Appendix A, and I'm going to cut the tape.